Welcome to Home Built Workshop. I'm Jeff. In this episode, I'm going to build a holder for my iPad. I use my iPad for a lot of things around the house, from watching videos and social media, and also a lot of other apps that I use on the iPad. I thought it'd be kind of cool and a fun little project to build a stand that'll hold the iPad at a nice viewing angle so you can have it sitting on a counter or on a desk or something like that. I've seen a lot of videos, different ways people have done this. Kind of took the ideas that I like the best and I'm going to make my own. To build this stand, I'm going to use some offcuts from some guitar bodies that I've been working on. Kind of got some funky shapes, but there's some usable material down here if I rip off the curve. Also, I've been testing some different finishes and different things, so they got some weird finish and stuff on there, but once I trim it down and sand them off, it'll be just fine. First, I'll clean them up on the table saw. Now just apply some wood glue and clamp it up. When I clamp it up, I make sure I'm clamping it from both directions. This will apply even clamping pressure and make sure I get a really good glue joint. Once the glue is dry, I'll use my crosscut sled to cut it down to the final dimensions. Then I'll sand it quickly with a random orbit sander just to even out the glue joints. Now, using an 1/8 inch round over bit on my router table, I'll ease all the edges. Now it's time to cut the slot that's going to hold the iPad. I thought about using the router table and tipping the piece at about a 15-degree angle, but I couldn't quite figure out a great way to hold the piece at an angle while I route the groove to hold the iPad. So I'm just going to use the scale on the side of my table saw, tilt the blade to about 15 degrees. I'm not worried if it's not exactly 15 degrees. I think it'll be just fine. I'll cut an angle at each end of the slot. Then I'll nibble away the center. Since I cut that slot with the saw blade at an angle, which means the teeth on the saw blade are not perfectly straight, the only downside of doing it that way is it doesn't leave you with a nice, flat, smooth bottom to the groove. I'm going to clean that up with a file. Once I get it pretty close with the file, I've cut about a 15-degree angle on a block of wood. I'm just going to wrap it with a piece of sandpaper so that I can get in there and finish it up. I think if I was going to make a bunch of these, I'd find a way to cut that so I don't have to do this sanding. It really takes a little bit of time to get it smooth. Once I have the slot smoothed out, I'll just finish up with a little bit more hand sanding. Now I'm marking out a center line that I can use at the drill press. Now, using a Forstner bit and a stop block clamped to my drill press table, I'm going to drill a circular notch so that you can access the home button on the iPad. And there's my little access for the home button when the iPad is sitting in there. Now, I mentioned that these offcuts are from a guitar body that I'm working on. I'm going to use the finish on this as a test for that guitar. I want to see how this is going to look if I dye it. I've got some gray Transfast wood dye. I'm going to use gray because the top of the guitar body that I'm working on is gray barnwood. So I want to see how this wood looks with the gray dye. So I've already got the dye mixed up. I'm just going to wipe it on with a clean rag. A lot of projects that I do end up being a test for some sort of technique or a finish or something like that I plan to use on another project in the future. In this case, I want to see how the wood dye is going to look on this wood, finished just like I'd like to finish the guitar. Really is a good way to tell how something's going to turn out. I don't want to dye the guitar body and then come to find out that it doesn't really look very good. I'd rather do it on a smaller project and see how that turns out first. Since this is a water-based dye, it's going to raise the grain, and I'm okay with that. I'll just let it completely dry, then give it a light sanding. I'll wipe it down with a clean rag to remove all the dust. For the finish, I'm going to wipe on some Danish oil. It's kind of up in the air on whether or not I wanted to try Danish oil or spray on polyurethane. I'm going to try the Danish oil on this, see how it turns out. Again, I'm trying to figure out how I want to end up finishing this guitar when I get to that project in the future. I'll let that dry. A couple of coats of polyurethane will wrap up the finish. For this project, I'm using a satin. As soon as the polyurethane's dry, iPad stand is complete. Came out pretty good. My iPad just has one of these thin cases, so I've cut the slot to fit that. If you have an iPad with a different kind of case or something like that, you may need to adjust the width of the slot. But it holds it pretty good. You can put it in both directions. When the iPad is open, you have good access to the home button through the notch that we drilled. I like the way these came out so well that I made a couple of different ones, made out of some different wood, a couple different finishes. Really a fun and easy project, and it's actually quite handy if you use an iPad at all. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. I appreciate your support. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you don't miss any episodes. You can also follow me on social media. I'll put all the links down below in the description. So thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you next time. To build these, I'm going to use some offcuts from a couple guitar bodies. They kind of got some funky shapes and stuff to it, but they got some usable material on here. If I rip it down, it'll be just fine. Loud playing. There's always a siren going by. What's up with that? Danish oil or spray poly? Don't know. Oh great, the bee just flew in here. You better not sting me. Okay, he's gone. We're good. I don't know what to use for the finish. Let's try a little bit of this. A bee's back. If I get stung by a bee, that's gonna be bad. Not allergic or anything, but I don't need those bees. Get out of here.